Imagine the impact of an addiction that doesn't end with the death of the physical body but continues to affect us in the spiritual realm, keeping us bound to a dense vibration. This happens more often than you might think. In this video, we will explore how alcohol not only compromises our health but also opens doors to spiritual obsession and post-mortem suffering. By understanding the impact of alcohol, you'll begin to realize that the consequences go far beyond what meets the eye. Watch this video until the end to uncover how this post-mortem process can unfold for alcoholics from the perspective of Spiritism. And don't forget, giving this video a like helps the channel continue bringing valuable content to your spiritual journey. It's simple and quick but means a lot to us. Now, let's get to it. When the spirit leaves the physical body, it doesn't simply break free from its characteristics and addictions. On the contrary, what it cultivated throughout life, attachments, unresolved emotions, and addictions, continues to accompany it into the spiritual plane. Alcohol addiction, for example, is a form of material attachment that doesn't disappear with death. The addicted spirit still feels the urge to consume the substance, a craving that manifests in its energetic essence. This lack of physical pleasure can keep the spirit bound to a low vibrational frequency, hindering its spiritual elevation and growth. This tendency toward attachment doesn't dissolve like a habit abandoned after death. Instead, the spirit carries these tendencies and compulsions persistently, keeping it tied to dense and shadowy regions known in Spiritism as the Umbral. These areas are inhabited by spirits who have yet to free themselves from earthly desires and addictions, living in continuous suffering. It's somewhat akin to the Catholic concept of purgatory but without the notion of eternal punishment. When addicted to alcohol after death, it becomes an invisible chain that keeps the spirit trapped in its inability to detach from material cravings. Stay tuned, as we'll discuss the Umbral in greater detail later in this video. And if this content resonates with you and you're eager to learn more, we invite you to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. Returning to the topic, it's important to note that a spirit's transformation doesn't happen magically after passing. Even in the spiritual plane, it requires time and effort to overcome its attachments. Without inner change, the spirit remains stuck in the vibrations of addiction, endlessly seeking satisfaction that never comes. As we can imagine, this condition of attachment brings immense pain and suffering. However, there's always the possibility of transformation, as Spiritism denies the concept of eternal hell. In the spiritual realm, spirits don't have physical bodies and thus cannot consume alcohol in the same way they did while incarnated. However, the addiction to alcohol doesn't simply vanish when the spirit leaves the physical body. Instead, the craving for the substance transfers to the perispirit, or astral body. Thus, the addiction manifests as an energetic hunger, a need the spirit tries to satisfy through other means. The only way the spirit finds relief is by absorbing the energy of those who consume alcohol or frequent places where alcohol is present. It may sound strange, but alcohol has an energy that spirits can sense, and they seek out this energy much like a living person seeks the physical pleasure of the substance. This process of energetic absorption perpetuates the spirit's cycle of need. They gravitate toward people indulging in alcohol consumption, particularly those with a stronger tendency toward addiction, creating an energetic link. As mentioned earlier, the Umbral is a spiritual zone of suffering and trial, where spirits bound by material desires and attachments, such as alcohol addiction, find themselves. In this region, the spiritual reality is shaped by these addictions and the unfulfilled need for earthly pleasures. Often, the addicted spirit can become completely lost in this cycle of suffering, leading to a sense of despair. Since the Umbral is a region where energy is dense and difficult to transition to higher realms, the spirit becomes trapped in this lower vibrational state. Furthermore, it's common for these spirits to associate with others in similar conditions, forming groups or spiritual tribes, where suffering and the search for satisfaction continue. In this state, the spirit endlessly seeks pleasure but never escapes the darkness of its addiction. It's important to clarify that the Umbral isn't a specific place in the spiritual world. Instead, it's one of the many dimensions of our own world. For instance, the Umbral exists as one of the various layers of reality that coexist with our physical world, and each layer corresponds to certain vibrational levels of spirits. For example, if an alcoholic man dies on your street, depending on his spiritual state, he may go to a denser place or remain very close to our material plane. If he goes to the Umbral, he is essentially still on the same street where he died, but in a dense spiritual dimension. When in this dimension, which we refer to as the Umbral, He no longer perceives people or the location in the same way. To him, it may seem as though he is northwest longer on that street, and he might even feel lost because of this, but he is there. For him to see any of us incarnated while in the Umbral, our vibration would need to match his. Only then could he perceive us. On the other hand, if his vibration is closer to the physical plane, he can see us, even though the incarnated cannot see him. This vibrational alignment determines whom he will remain near to fulfill his craving for alcohol. This energetic interaction can become so intense for the incarnated person that it may be difficult for them to break free from the spirit's influence. The presence of a spirit addicted to alcohol can manifest indirectly, through heightened anxiety, an increased urge to drink, or even behaviors reminiscent of the addiction. Over time, the spirit tightens this bond, weaving an invisible web and becoming increasingly dependent on the incarnated individual's energy. This exchange of influence may go unnoticed but can be devastating to the well-being of the person, who may unknowingly find themselves deeper in their addiction, feeding the spirit in the process. The rescue of spirits addicted to alcohol is a challenging task but is entirely possible within the spiritual realm. Spirits trapped by addictions like alcohol require a profound process of self-awareness and regeneration to achieve freedom. The first step in this rescue is the spirit's realization of their condition. Many spirits fail to recognize that they are still suffering and that their addiction keeps them trapped in a dense vibration, far from light and spiritual progress. This is why the assistance of spiritual workers is vital. These workers act compassionately, guiding the spirit to regions of healing and enlightenment within the spiritual plane. In these areas, the spirit begins to recognize the consequences of their actions and understand the need to overcome their addictions. The rescue process involves not only energetic rehabilitation but also an awakening to repentance and inner change. The spirit must want to change, feel a sincere desire to evolve, and free themselves from the chains of addiction. Without this desire for transformation, the rescue becomes impossible. Now that you understand the profound impact alcohol can have on your afterlife, the question remains, are you ready to take the first steps toward breaking free from this cycle? Did you find this content interesting? Do you have any questions? Or perhaps you disagree with some of the points raised? Share your opinion in the comments. Your perspective is very important to us. If this message resonated with you, consider sharing this video with someone who might need a spiritual awakening. Someone who may not yet realize how a seemingly simple addiction can deeply affect their journey. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications so you can continue receiving inspiring content. See you in our next video. Peace profound.